We are back once again. This is lesson number 11, and the strand is oral language. Sub-strand, asking and answering questions. It is continuation of what we did last week, and this happens to be the final part of it on question tags. Performance indicator. Learners can provide question tags for statements without auxiliary verbs. You should be able to provide question tags for statements without auxiliary verbs. This implies that if the statement have no auxiliary verbs, we can provide question tag for it still. That means we need to create an auxiliary verb for such statements. Let's proceed. We shall look at it once again what statements are, or declarative sentence. So we look at what a declarative sentence or declarative sentences are. Define what a question tag is. By now, everybody must be able to define question tag. We shall remind ourselves of the rules governing question tags. In our main lesson, we shall look at what declarative sentence is. It is a sentence that makes a statement and ends with a full stop. A sentence that makes a statement and ends with a full stop. So in declarative sentences, one thing to have in mind is that the subject always precede or come before the verbs in them. Let's take some few examples. They won the battle. They won the battle. The subject, who are we talking about? They is the subject, and the verb follows, which is won. This is a typical example of a statement. Another sentence or another statement. He has moved to another neighborhood. He has moved to another neighborhood. The subject is he, and the verb is has moved. So from the previous discussion we had, there is an auxiliary verb in this sentence or this statement, which is has. So we can write its tag. The first place, the sentence or the statement is a positive statement, so the answer must be a negative one, a negative tag. So the negative tag of has then becomes has plus not, which is hasn't. So he has moved to another neighborhood. What will be the question tag? He has moved to another neighborhood. The question tag is hasn't he? Another sentence. There is a new person in charge. This is also a statement. There is a new person in charge. This is a positive statement. So provide its question tag for yourself. What is a question tag? It is a short form of question that is usually attached to the end of a statement to affirm it or to seek confirmation. It also says it is a short form of question usually attached to the end of a statement to seek agreement. Yes. To agree that your information or what you are saying is true. A reminder of the rules that govern question tags. 1. A negative statement requires a positive tag. A negative statement requires a positive tag. A negative statement is a statement that has adverbs such as not, no, or never. These are the most common ones which are used. When a statement has any of these ones, it is said to be a negative statement. So a negative statement requires a positive tag. And second one, a positive statement also requires a negative tag. So they are vice versa, opposite to each other. 3. Contracted form of auxiliary or modal verb in the statement is used in the tag and response. Yes. When your tag happens to be a negative tag, the contracted form of the auxiliary or the modal verb is needed or is used. The contracted form of this one is where you include not to the auxiliary verb provided. Good. 4th, use the appropriate pronouns corresponding or matching to the subject in the statement to form the tag. So if the subject in the sentence happens to be a noun, you need to change the noun into personal pronoun before you can use it in the tag. You don't use nouns in the question tag. You don't use nouns in forming the tag. Good. Pay much attention to this section very well. Rules governing statements without auxiliary verbs. So when you want to change a statement into question tag or add question tag to a statement which does not have any auxiliary verb, how do you go by it? 1. When the verbs in the statement are in the present tense, do or does is used in forming the tag. When the verbs in the statement are in the present tense, do or does is used in forming the tag. Now, let's find the negative tag or the contracted form of do and then not. Do, if you add not to it, it then becomes don't. Does also, when you add not to it, it becomes doesn't. So somebody can conclude by saying that When the verbs in the statement are in the present tense, we use do, don't, doesn't, and then does, making it four. Somebody can decide to say so. When the statement is in the present tense, you can say we use do, we use don't, we use does, or doesn't in forming the tag. Let's look at some examples. Good. You can pause the video and put these things down. He, write them down. He, she, it, these pronouns. And I write this one also, singular subjects. Singular subjects. Put them in a circle. Good. By the circle, write does or doesn't by them. Does or doesn't by the words you wrote. Good. Now let's go. They play basketball every day. They play basketball every day. The subject is they. The verb is play. Play is a present tense verb. There isn't any of the words or any of the pronouns you wrote down. So the tag is going to take either do or don't. So they play basketball every day. The statement is a positive one, so the tag must be negative. They play basketball every day. So the tag then becomes don't they? They play basketball every day. Don't they? It means it affirms that they play it every day. Pius likes sweets. The verb is the underlying one, which is likes. The subject is pious. So look in the words you wrote down. Singular subject. Pious is the subject, is a singular. Pious refers to one person. So singular subject. So each singular subject, the term we're going to use either does or doesn't. So let's look at the statement. Whether positive or negative, it will determine the tag to attach to it. Pius likes sweets. It is a positive statement. So my tag must be a negative one. Pius likes sweets. Doesn't he? So you change Pius into personal pronoun. Pius likes sweets. Doesn't he? We celebrate the Independence Day yearly. We celebrate the Independence Day yearly. Celebrate is the verb in the sentence, which is underlined. It's a present tense verb. So if it is a present tense verb, we use do or does in forming the tag. So we celebrate the Independence Day yearly. The subject is we, and we is a plural subject. When you look at the words you wrote down, he, she, it, and then singular subject, we isn't a singular subject. It's a pronoun. It's a plural one. So we cannot use does or doesn't. So we go for either do or don't. The statement is a positive one, so the tag must be a negative one. We celebrate the Independence Day yearly. We celebrate the Independence Day yearly. So the tag then becomes, don't we? We celebrate the Independence Day yearly. Don't we? IV, fourth one. My mother always makes excuses whenever I feel like going to the cinema. The underlined word is makes, that is a verb. My mother. Which pronoun replaces my mother? She. So she belongs to the one you use does or doesn't. My mother always makes excuses whenever I feel like going to the cinema. So the statement is a positive one. So your tag must be a negative one. My mother always makes excuses whenever I feel like going to the cinema. Doesn't she? Good. Let's continue to the next rule. Rule number 2, and the final rule, under statements which have no auxiliary verbs. When the verb is in the past tense, did is used in forming the tag. So the negative form of did is didn't. Did is didn't. So we're going to use did and then didn't in our discussion now. But a verb is in the past tense, so it is good to identify whether the verb in a sentence is in the past or in the present for this section. That was why we treated verb tenses some time ago. You can go back and revise it. When the verb is in the past tense, did, or let me say didn't, is used in forming the tag. Yes, till you obey the rules. Positive statements goes with a negative tag, and the vice versa. So let's look at the first example here. Ajay and his friends went for snail hunting. Ajay and his friends went for snail hunting. The word in bold print, went, is the verb in the past tense. Ajay and his friends. Over here, the subject is they. The subject the pronoun that replaces the subject is they. Ajay and his friends. The pronoun is they. So it's like they went for snail hunting. And the statement is a positive statement. So I use a negative tag. So did, then the negative form is didn't. So Ajay and his friends went for snail hunting. Didn't they? Didn't they? The puppy had its tail. The puppy had its tail. Subject in here is the puppy. What pronoun replaces the puppy? It. The personal pronoun that replaces it is it. So if you put it there, a sentence becomes it had its tail. It had its tail. Had is the verb in the past tense. Yes, it's in the past tense. If it's in the present tense, then because of the subject, the puppy, then I need to add s to the verb. But it's in the past tense, so don't be confused. The puppy heads its tail. It as the pronoun to replace the puppy. The statement is a positive statement, so I go for my negative tag. So the negative form of tail then becomes didn't. So it becomes didn't it, the puppy heads its tail. Didn't it? Good. Now the final one, the third one, you will do it for me. Comfort never washed her father's car. Comfort never washed her father's car. The statement is a negative one. So if the statement is a negative one, the tag must be positive. Comfort never washed her father's car. What should be the tag? Let me help you. You can replace comfort with she. So comfort never washed her father's car. What's the tag? Sure. I'm reading, then you add it loudly for me. You add a tag. Comfort never washed her father's car. Did she? Thank you. To wrap up our lesson for today, let's take note of the following rules and then say bye-bye to it. Before we do so, let's have this statement in mind and try to get a question tag form for it. I have a car. I have a car. What should the question tag be? I have a car. Okay, some of us will be thinking of the verb have, because we know have highly to be an auxiliary verb. So if that one happens to be an auxiliary verb, I have a car, then the contraction form or the tag form will then become haven't I. This sounds awkward. Yes, because in this statement, the statement is showing who something belongs to. So it is talking about possession or ownership of something. If a statement talks about ownership of something, there's a rule we need to follow. So let's go back to the rules. NB. If we use has, have or had as an action verb or main verb, meaning to own or to possess something, then we use do, does, or did in the tag question. Not the have, the has, and then the had as we know to be auxiliary verbs. No. When the statement talks about ownership of something or who something belongs to in a statement, and it uses or it introduces any of these verbs, has, have, or had, then it is no more an auxiliary verb. It functions as the main verb in a sentence. And when it happens, they use do, does, or did to replace it in forming a tag, like we said earlier for for statements that do not have auxiliary verbs in them. So I have a car, then becomes don't I have a car, don't I, because I possess or own the car. It is showing ownership of something in a statement or in a sentence. She has 2 children. Who are we talking to? Who are we talking about? She being the subject. she being the subject, and she possessed or she owned the children. The children are for her. So she has 2 children. Doesn't she? She has 2 children. Doesn't she? I. You had my book earlier. Have is used in here as the main verb and it's a past tense verb. You had my book earlier, still showing ownership, who something belongs to in a sentence. So you had my book earlier, didn't you? Good. And the last one, I. They have a chunk of money in the bank. They have a chunk of money in the bank. Don't they? They have a chunk of money in the bank. Don't they? Good. So take notes. Statements that talk about ownership or who something belongs to in sentences using has, have or had as the main verb. The tags are formed differently, unlike the previous rules that we learned. Good. Alright. This brings us to the end of lesson 11. So we are through with question tags. I urge you all to read more in the Golden English Book 5. There are a lot of exercises over there too. Read and try your hands on them. Lastly, when you open your portal, like the way you do your work, when you open your portal, on the left side you will see comments. Yes, not only for literacy or the other subject. So after listening to the tutorials and those, if there's something is giving you trouble, you can write a comment and paste it. Yes. When I get to them or when I read them, I shall answer them to you privately like the way you sent them. Yes. So get prepared for the exams in the 12th lesson. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.